Every single day, multiple times on any given day as a matter of fact, you turn to the same place in order to look for information, in order to get answers to questions, in order to find products and services to fulfill needs that you have in your life, in order to find the opening hours of things around you in your local community. It's called a search engine, and given the position of power that search engines are in when it comes to informational gatekeeping, it's pretty amazing the degree to which we do not really understand how they operate. And so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to take you through the parts that make up a modern search engine so that you can leave a little bit more educated on these gatekeepers to the web, these navigators that guide the journeys that you take across our digital informational landscape. And we're going to ask the question, is everything that says it's a search engine really a search engine? My name's Josh, and as you might be able to tell from this getup, I work for the UK-based alternative search engine Mojeek. A search engine is divided up into three parts, these being the crawler, the index, and the ranking algorithm. Let's deal with all three of those in turn, starting with the crawler, also known as a spider. Why is it called a spider? Because it crawls along the web. Very good, an old internet joke for you right there. A spider or a crawler is an internet bot that systematically goes out to web pages and fetches the information that is needed in order to build up a viable index of the web. How does it decide what on a website is going to be useful and indexable? We can't just be going to every single website and pulling every single web page. There will be a lot of irrelevant ones, and there are some websites like Facebook which are very big, and it would be very strange for us to pull all of that information. Well, for that, we have to look at a file called robots.txt. Robots.txt has a long history as an open web standard. Go to a website, put /robots.txt on the end of its root home page URL, and you will be able to discover that text file. That text file essentially gives you a bunch of rules by which you should play if you want to find useful information on that website and you want to align with the person who built its idea of what should be indexed by a search engine. One thing which we should say actually here about robots.txt is that it's not necessarily an equitable standard. There are many websites which will not allow certain crawlers to crawl their site, which creates a difficult situation, because if you want to have a competing index of the web, then you need to have that privilege and that access to be equitable across all websites. But I digress. Let's move on to the second part of this technological stack, which is the index. So we've gone out, we've crawled, and we've got this information. What do we do with it next? We put it into our index. What is an index? An index is a repository of information. If we were to take the example of my prop here, a book, we have a title to this book, we have a blurb on the back, we have the author's name, we have a bunch of names of chapters, but we have quite a lot of information in here. Now the index needs to parse and sort this information in order to make sure that it is as efficiently readable as possible. If we were to index this book, we would be quite safe in the knowledge that this copy at least is not going to change in terms of the content contained within it. It is static. Normally with books you reprint them every now and again, but this physical copy that I have in front of me right now is static. It will not change unless I start ripping pages out of it. The difference between this and the web is that the web is very much not static. It is dynamic. It is constantly changing and evolving. So in order to make sure that that index is as up to date as possible, we have to make sure we are recrawling and re-indexing web pages to have the most current content. If somebody adds a new blog post, if somebody changes the dates for something, then we need to go back to that web page in order to ensure that the index still has a useful piece of information inside of it. So we've looked at our crawl, we've looked at our index. Now let's move on to the ranking algorithm. The ranking algorithm is a sorting process that decides which of the possible results from the index for any given query are the most relevant and escalates them to the top. There has been a lot of talk about censorship when it comes to some of the bigger tech platforms, and while I would admit that there is definitely some of that, there is not always a case to be made for censorship when it comes to results. Quite often, actually, what's happening is the ranking algorithm is affecting what you see on the page and pushing down some things and raising other things. Now, the algorithm is going to be different depending upon if we're talking about a traditional tracking search engine, one which gathers large quantities of data in order to serve people with more and more relevant advertisements. This can be useful in some situations, but it also very much can lead to some bad routes through the internet where you get trapped in filter bubbles that do not allow you to step outside of your biases and the political view that you have carried with you to the search engine in the first place. Or a search engine such as Mojik, which does not collect any of that information, and aside from location data, which you can share with us if you would like in order to improve the relevance of the results that you get from a query, every single person gets exactly the same set of results. I've talked through the course of this video about how there are search engines that are made up of these three things and how there is something else that does not have all three of those things. Now, let's go on to talk about that. Crawling and indexing the web is no mean feat. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of resources, and it takes technologists who understand what they're doing. So in order to shortcut that, there are a lot of search services, not search engines, that instead pay for the utilization of someone else's index.
Okay, so let me break this down for you. First, we have the crawler, the first part of our stack. And for our search service, the crawler is owned and operated by someone else, probably Bing. Then we have our index, built using the aforementioned crawler, and yes, you've guessed it, that is also owned and operated by someone else. Once again, it's very likely to be Bing. And then we have the ranking algorithm. Search services can have their own way of ranking the results which come back, but they can also just take the ranking parameters and weights of their index and crawler provider, which is, once again, more than likely going to be Bing. And finally, we have the website itself, the UI, the thing that you actually use. This smiley or colourful logo type page is something which is owned and operated just by the search service itself. So to recap, when you put a query into the box of a search service, they send that query and some other data depending upon what the agreement is between the search service and the company providing the index back to the index provider. Just for simplicity's sake, let's call them Microsoft. Microsoft receives this information and then sends back a set of the top ranked search results as well as some ads. Yeah, the ads are provided by Bing too. What you see in your search service will be those results that have been sent back.
What we are talking about here is a situation where a lot of the alternatives that people have proposed throughout the years as ways of getting away from big tech are actually just another one of big tech's revenue models. So go out and try it for yourself. Load up Bing and you will probably see that your ranking algorithm is pretty much the same as Bing and the results are pretty much exactly the same as Bing. Some of them will combine together the results from two different indexes that they pay for, but by and large they are just leveraging Bing's results, which means it's a lot easier for you to shortcut to being a profitable company, to having a workable product, because at the end of the day that really isn't your product. Your product is privacy. It is not the actual alternative offering up of something which is different to to big technology. The thing that we say at Mojik is that people should be attempting to use more than one search engine, because these different indexes of the web allow you to deeper penetrate informational silos and find things that you would not be able to find normally. There are articles on our blog about how you can use Mojik as a part of that set of search engines. We have a growing index, we are improving day in, day out, and we need you. If you really believe in a better future, click the link below this video. We have a newsletter which we send out once every 2 months, providing there is something to say, which is something that you will not get out of a lot of different entities sending newsletters who see them as a sales vehicle. And you can follow us across the different big tech social media platforms, and the one that is not like that. This has been a fun video to make. I hope that you're walking away with a little bit of a better understanding of how search works. And if there is anything else that we could demystify for you, then please put it in the comments below or send it to us via our contact form. If we want a real alternative, if we want something outside of that techno bubble, if we want to get rid of the Pikais, the Zuckerbergs of the world, if we are done with Bezos, then we need to think about dependencies, and we need to build something outside of their reach.